Call the member for Melbourne.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Finally, after 8 years, a piece of legislation that might actually do something good for renewables. Why did it take 8 years? Why did it take 8 years? Could it be because the Energy Minister, who's in charge of this legislation, doesn't have the courage to come and sit here at the dispatch box, so he leaves it up to his junior to come in and fly the flag? Could it be because the Energy Minister earn his political stripes campaigning against wind farms and renewable energy? Could that be the reason it's taken us 9 years, almost 9 years, before we see a piece of legislation that supports renewables? Could it be that because the former Treasurer, Joe Hockey, said that wind farms were ugly and he can't stand them as he goes around Canberra? He can't stand them because the person holding the purse strings in this parliament said, I don't want wind farms and there's no way that I'm going to ever support them? Could it be because the man who's now the Deputy Prime Minister said he didn't understand, in his words, quote, this insane lemming-like desire to have, quote, a sea of wind farms everywhere? Could that be why it has taken almost 9 years to see one piece of legislation that might do something good about renewables? Or could it be because our Prime Minister came in here and held up a lump of coal and said, this is coal, it's amazing, it won't hurt you, when the whole world was screaming at him, saying coal and gas are the major causes of the climate crisis and we've got to stop burning them? Could that be why it has taken so long to see one piece of legislation from the government that might actually do something good for renewables? Well, increasingly, this government, led by climate deniers, is getting mugged by reality. It's the political reality of having seats that they thought were super safe, like Kooyong, now being Greens Liberal seats, where a small number of votes could shift and the Treasurer could get the message that it is time to take action on the climate crisis? Or could it be that they're getting mugged by the political reality of seeing a former Prime Minister lose his seat to an independent who's got an ambitious climate policy? Could it be the fact that the Prime Minister is heading off to one of the most important climate summits in our lifetime, where if he walked in with his lump of coal, he'd be turned around and kicked out and shown the door? Slowly but surely, the government is getting mugged by reality, including by the business community that are saying we have had enough. Mind you, many of the same business community that tore down the carbon price when we had it, that was working to cut pollution in this country, they've now had a change of heart. But increasingly, this government is realising that although it might play well to their backbench to wave around lumps of coal and pretend climate change doesn't exist, it doesn't wash anymore. It doesn't wash. Of course, they still have climate denialism at their heart. And you see that just this week, where the world is pleading with the Prime Minister, who should have done a piece of legislation like this long ago, because the Greens have been calling for it for that long. The reason that we hear the truth being spoken, the Liberal interjection for the Hansard was, we're only 1% of global emissions, what can we do? Well, you know what? That shows you everything you need to know. And I'm sure that they'll get up and correct that if they think I'm misrepresenting them. But that is what this government believes at the heart. We should not be taking action on the climate crisis. That is why you've heard it from the government's own words. Do you know what? Australia is the world's largest exporter of coal. Australia is the world's largest exporter of coal. We're the third largest exporter of fossil fuel pollution, behind Russia and Saudi Arabia. Don't come in here and pretend we're not responsible. We are the third largest exporter of fossil fuel pollution. And you know who we'll be hanging out with at the climate summit when Scott Morrison goes there? Russia and Saudi Arabia, with these mid-century net zero targets and no plan to get there, and subsidies for coal, gas and oil to put more coal, gas and oil into the system along the way. This is a government of climate deniers, and delay is the new denial. Pushing action out to 2050 and coming up with a plan that involves more coal and gas, terrible 2030 targets, and just a hope that someone will ride in on a unicorn in 2049 with technology that hasn't been invented yet to save us all, shows your plan is a fraud. And the fact that the government sends members in here during a debate on their own bill about wind farms to interject that we're only 1% of emissions, so why should we do anything, tells you everything you need to know about the denial that beats at the heart of this government. And that is why, to get action on the climate crisis, we need to phase out coal and gas.